Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to you all. Hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. So we are beginning today's webinar. Very warm welcome to all of you. Hope you all are doing well and keeping safe. So thank you for joining us for this webinar today on Clinical and Public Health Research Center grants. My name is Himashri and I am a Senior Executive Science Communications at the DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, and I will be your host for today's webinar. So before we begin, let me introduce you to the India Alliance. India Alliance is an independent, dynamic public charity that invests in that funds research in health and biomedical sciences in India. We also invest in transformative ideas and supportive research ecosystems to advance discovery and innovation to improve health and well-being. We are being funded by the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, and the Wellcome Trust in UK. Today, we are here to talk about the recently launched Clinical and Public Health Research Center grants here. These grants are institutional grants and envisioned as research-oriented centers with focus on major biomedical research problems and are meant to promote clinical or public health research and also to develop physician scientists to empower clinicians and public health scientists to carry out the patient and population-oriented research in addition to patient care and preventive medicine. So before we begin the webinar, a few quick housekeeping pointers. This webinar is being recorded, so you will find highlights of the webinar on our YouTube channel in a few days. Video and microphone of all the attendees will remain switched off during the event. For any questions that come to your mind during the speakers talking, please leave your questions in the question box. Please make sure that the question only relates to the topic that is being covered in the webinar today. Also, we'll have a separate question and answer session during which you will have the option of raising your virtual hand, as you can see on the screen right now, to ask the question, and we'll unmute you as on your turn. Also, please do remember to not identify yourself. Just ask the question directly. And in case if you find that the webinar ends abruptly due to a technical glitch, please join back using the same registration link that you have used now. And now on your screens, you'll see the agenda for today's event. The webinar will have the following sessions, like we have begun with the introduction. Then we'll have two of our grants advisors from India Alliance talking about the grants today and the information and the application process. We'll have a short Q&A, question and answer session, after which we will listen to experiences of past CRC grant awardee, and then we'll conclude conclude the session. So now we move to the first session for the day. This session will be taken by both my colleagues, Dr. Surendra Mohan and Dr. Divya Singh. So let me introduce you to them. Dr. Surendra Mohan is a grants advisor at India Alliance, and his role is to liaise with the scientific community and handle grants processes. He has a master's degree in biotechnology and has completed his PhD in infectious diseases from the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Dr. Divya Singh is also a grants advisor here. She has completed her PhD in cell and molecular biology from the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Physiology at Dortmund in Germany. She also likes to engage with India Alliance Fellows, facilitate their research careers, and participate in outreach programs such as these. So I now invite Surendra and Divya to begin their presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Surendra. I'm a grants advisor at DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance. And in this presentation, I'll take you through the Clinical and Public Health Research Center scheme and talk a little bit about the eligibility requirements as well as important aspects for you to consider before submitting a competitive application. I'll then hand over to my colleague Dr. Divya, and she will explain the application format and a few important points to consider before submission. CRC are majorly for institutions to support a collaborative team to address an important health challenge for India. There seems to be a bandwidth issue, so I'll turn off my video for now. I'll join back once the presentation is done. So the remit of this program is to support a research-oriented virtual center that aims to improve the clinical and public health research ecosystems in India. Therefore, any Indian institution in collaboration with other institutions and even global partners can apply for a CRC grant. The CRC program aims to improve the clinical and public health research ecosystems in India uh, by bridging the gaps in human resource, supervision, mentorship, equipment, and administration. This is done through establishing a virtual CRC center, and these virtual CRC centers are envisioned as research-oriented centers established with a focus on addressing a biomedical research problem. This can be done through involving multiple institutions. The CRCs can be based on either cross-cutting or vertical research themes and must be within the remit of India Alliance, that is to support research related to human or animal health. Big data, population-based interdisciplinary cohorts, or disease modeling are examples of cross-cutting themes, whereas antimicrobial resistance or nutrition or even cardiometabolic diseases, mental health, respiratory infections, these can be examples of vertical themes. So we encourage applicants to bring in cross-cutting or vertical research themes and integrate them into the proposal. CRC grants are very prestigious in the scientific community, and these grants are one of the most generous funding schemes in India. Funding can be requested up to 10 crores Indian rupee for a 5-year project duration. And please note that projects which are less than 5 years, or if funding is requested over 10 crores, such applications will be declined at the early stage itself. The CRC will be led by a principal investigator who will be managed, and he or she will lead this grant. The PI will be accompanied by co-PIs. We strongly recommend including more co-PIs so as to not miss any relevant expertise required to fulfill the objectives of the proposed grant. So having said this, it is important to justify in the application the reason for choosing any co-PI and their role in the application. The CRCs are envisioned to include more than one institution. Therefore, it is important to identify appropriate co-PIs from these partner institutions. And one more important point to consider would be that all the partnering institutions which you would like to identify must be not-for-profit and must be financially eligible to receive India Alliance funds. We suggest you to visit our website for some more details on the eligibility of organization. The participating team should promote the clinical and public health research ecosystem while addressing the important health challenge, important biomedical problem. This would mean that the team should consider proposing a good training and good mentoring program in the application. In addition to this, a strong institutional commitment would be very essential to submit a competitive grant. The participating team may like to opt for CRTP fellowship scheme to support and train physician scientists. I'll talk a bit more about CRTP fellowship in a short while. So we strongly recommend the applicants to include international collaboration, which really adds value to the application. And this provides an excellent opportunity for the support staff as well as the CRTP fellows to get some international exposure through training and mentorship from the identified experts outside India. The PI will lead and manage the team of investigators and should be working at or willing to move at a not-for-profit institution in India. The PI should also be a senior clinical or a public health science researcher with an established track record of science leadership, established track record of research training, as well as mentoring. They should have a guaranteed tenure at the institution for the duration of the grant and have the sponsoring institution as their primary affiliation in addition to guarantee of a salary. Whereas the co-PI can be from overseas not-for-profit institutions. In case the co-PI is from India, they should also be working at a not-for-profit institution. PIs and institutions may nominate a senior researcher as a co-PI. And as mentioned earlier, all these roles must be clearly justified in the application. So we strongly encourage PIs and the team to bring in a good geographical diversity. Apologies. Yeah. We strongly encourage the team to bring in good geographical diversity and good gender balance in the team structure. And we strongly encourage you to include more international collaboration when identifying a co-PI. So funding can be requested for salary support of PI or co-PIs. In such a scenario, a letter from the institution may be required confirming that the PI or the co-PI is required to raise salary support from extramural grants. One point to note here is that the overseas co-PI cannot request for a salary support in the application, but they can request other budgetary requirements. Funds can also be requested for hiring support staff, purchase of equipment, consumables required for the grant, for training or organizing patient engagement program, and even travel. Funds can also be requested for strengthening the research management structure at the host institutions. So it's important that all these budgetary requests, including manpower, salary support, all these should commensurate with the proposed work and must be supported with a strong scientific justification. Now, some key points to consider when submitting a CRC grant application. In case if the applying institution applies for a single institution CRC, then a strong justification would be required. In such cases, multiple departments at that institution should come together to form a team and submit an application. Research proposals from existing institutions should provide evidence of access to an in-house or external clinical study design unit, or CSDU in short. And they should also provide details of relevant training programs which they have organized till date in their institutions. CSDU are specialized biomedical research units that design, they centrally coordinate and analyze clinical studies in their institute. While some specialize in different methodologies, others specialize in disease type, they may be generic units as well. There is no prescribed format from India Alliance on CSDU, but the CSDU must address the requirements of the proposed research. The description which you are going to put in the application must be detailed, and there should be strong justification. And you need to show the link between the proposed work to the CSDU. The proposed project should basically enhance the existing research environment at the host institution during the funding tenure. And applicants are required to include a detailed milestone plan to evaluate success. In case you are also applying for CRTP, it's important to highlight the milestones for the proposed training program. The proposal must include components of human resource training and mentorship. And so training of MD and PhD students should be a critical part of the proposed project. Therefore, a detailed training plan and a plan to evaluate its success would be required in the application. Also, since these are multi-institutional, an appropriate research management plan should be in place at the coordinating institution, and it would be preferred if all the participating institutions have an appropriate research management plan. As mentioned earlier, funds can also be requested for strengthening the research management structure at the institution. The application should also outline a resource sharing plan and demonstrate sustainability after the funding period is over. While addressing these points, the applicant must keep in mind to include a comprehensive 5-year plan. So now, in order to submit a competitive application, motivation is the key. The team should be highly motivated and the institution must provide their full support and commitment. India Alliance does give weightage to scientific productivity that would include publications, presentations, patents, and mentoring research aspirants. The question addressed must be important biomedical question, which is relevant to the Indian context, and must be well supported with feasible research plan and appropriate sustainability plan. The proposal must highlight the value of the proposed collaboration. It should highlight the translational aspects of the work and must include a mentorship plan for its support staff and CRTPs if it is requested. The team should demonstrate the ownership of idea and availability of required expertise, and if there is any preliminary data, that can also be included in the application. Team should also include a good training plan by highlighting milestones and outcomes clearly, and also share the plans for public dissemination. We look for good grantsmanship, which include language, format of writing, and plagiarism. Please note, plagiarism is taken very seriously at India Alliance, and relatively higher plagiarized text, including self-plagiarism, can get rejected at the preliminary stage itself. So we believe the proposals are the ideas of the team, and for best outcome, the selection of the host institution, selection of collaborators must be well thought through. Therefore, the justification for each selection, I would say, should be very clear. One must keep in mind to provide appropriate justification for all the aspects that goes into the application. Then we come to CRTP. CRTP is Clinical Research Training Program, which aims to develop physician scientists to strengthen the clinical research ecosystem. Please note, this is an optional program under CRC, and any Indian institution applying for CRC can collaborate with eligible partners and apply for CRTP. Please note that CRTP is not a standalone program and must be linked to the CRC grant. So up to 12 fellowships will be available each year, and the value of each fellowship will be 50 lakhs Indian rupees, which will be over and above the 10 crores of the CRC grant, the funding which CRC grant provides. PIs can request not more than 12 fellowships in their application. Further, this is a 3 to 4 years mentored research training fellowships for medical graduates and postgraduates. So graduates and postgraduates from Ayush, nursing, dentistry, optometry are all eligible. these are some examples to highlight that this program will also support such disciplines. So to apply under this scheme, a strong commitment from all participating institutions may be required, which may include infrastructural support, which may include the research time, protected research time for trainees and mentorship plans, and so on. Any description related to the institutional commitment can be shared in the proposal or the institution undertaking form. So the participating institution should designate a program head who should be based at the lead institution, and other partnering institutions must designate coordinators. So please note that there can be only one program head, while there is no limit to add coordinators. It can opt for any researcher who is involved in clinical or public health or even basic research. So as part of this program, India Alliance encourages the trainees to receive a degree, say MPhil or a PhD or any certification at the exit point of this training. The selected trainees would be part of the India Alliance Fellows Network and would be able to participate and collaborate with other India Alliance Fellows. India Alliance strongly encourages inclusion of institutions from underserved areas, and institutions advertising CRTP must widely advertise and seek external applications as well. Now, the application cycle, we have 3-level screening system in our application cycle. Once the application is submitted, the office scrutinizes them for eligibility and for grantsmanship and plagiarism. And after the internal screening is done, these applications are then reviewed by the grant screening committee. The committee then gives specific feedback on each application, which helps the committee to shortlist the application to the next round. Applications declined at this stage generally receive specific feedback to improve their proposal. Then the ones that are shortlisted, these are sent to the international peer review. And this is a detailed and elaborate review process. And this is followed by the funding committee interviews. All peer-reviewed applications would normally be brought to the interviews unless recommended otherwise by the funding committee. For example, if the application can be rejected if the external review is not satisfactory. So the funding committee interview would include the PI, and if desired, up to 2 co-PIs on each application can participate in the interview process. So the entire process since the receipt of full application till the award of grant is approximately 10 months. I would like to talk about the resubmission policy here. If an application is unsuccessful after the funding committee interview, the PIs cannot apply to the same scheme as PI, but they can apply as co-PI. They can continue to apply as co-PI in future. However, if an application has been declined at the screening stage, which is the 3rd stage here on this flow chart, this condition would not be applicable. They can continue to reapply as PI in the next round. It is important to note that only one application will be accepted from a PI or a co-PI, and a PI in one application cannot be a co-PI in another application or even in a TSG application. This is the India Alliance CRC network, and this network is expanding every year, and we hope to add more new institutions in the coming years. Here is the representation of areas of biomedical, clinical, and public health sciences that are getting covered through India Alliance program. The broad remit of India Alliance scheme is to support biomedical research that is relevant to human and animal welfare. This layout is a representation of various areas of our funding, and we have supported grantees who are working in multiple disciplines like molecular biology, developmental biology, public health, research policy, psychiatry, and so on. So we request prospective applicants to visit our website for the updated application calls, the dates and deadlines. And the current CRC round was launched on 20th February, and the deadline to submit the application is 21st April 2023, 6 p.m. If shortlisted for the interviews would be tentatively be in November 2023. For any queries, please write to us on clinical.research@indiaalliance.org, and we'll promise you to get back within 3 working days with our response. Now I hand over to Dr. Divya, who will take you through the application process.
So I hope I'm audible to everybody. A warm good afternoon to everyone attending this session, and welcome to all our audience members. Thank you so much, Surinder, for explaining to the audience the provisions of the CRC scheme and the requirements that every participant must adhere to in order to be deemed eligible for the scheme. So in the next part of this presentation, I'm going to walk you through the different sections of the application form, where you can access the application form from, and what are the considerations that you must be keeping in mind to draft a very competitive application to submit to this scheme. For the sake of saving bandwidth, let me please turn off my camera. I request you all to keep typing in whatever questions come to your mind into the chat box. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this webinar, and we will try our very best to take up your questions at that point. So let us start with discussing the full application format for the CRC scheme. Now, this is the path that you can follow to be able to download the CRC application. If you visit the India Alliance website, there is a tab on the very top of the website for research funding. You click on that and then subsequently click on India Alliance grants. That will allow you to open the Clinical and Public Health Research Center page, which looks something like this. And down here, you see a link for you to be able to download the CRC application form. And for those of you that may not have been able to attend today's webinar, as instructed earlier by Himashri, the webinar is going to be recorded, and for the convenience of interested audience members, a recording of that link will be made available at the same place where indicated by the red arrow. So we request you all to pass this along to other interested members that will be able to use this webinar to gain some competitive tips. Now, while the general instructions in the application itself are very detailed, I will take this opportunity to highlight a few key points. Number one is to read all the instructions provided as general instructions as well as instructions embedded within each sheet. This is important so that you can fill the different sections appropriately. Please note that all the questions in the application are mandatory, and applicants should not leave any section blank. In case there are any questions that you don't think are relevant to you or your proposal, please write not applicable. Incomplete applications are summarily rejected. Please also be very mindful of using only the prescribed font size, font type, and line spacings throughout the application. This is extremely important and refers back to the point of good grantsmanship that my colleague Surinder spoke about earlier. I request all applicants to read the scheme related information and be mindful of India Alliance policies while filling out the application. The relevant links are embedded in the application form itself for your reference. Please note that funding cannot be requested for any regulatory clinical trials. Now, what you see on your screens here is the full application format. So you can see that excluding the top sheet, we have 16 different sections for applicants to fill. It is mandatory for applicants to fill all these sections. Wherever necessary, please write not applicable. Section number 3, which is the clinical research training program that you see in a lighter gray font, is optional. If you are not opting for CRTP within your CRC proposal, please write NA. Also note that each of these sections should start on a fresh page. Now we will spend the next few minutes going over each of these sections in some detail, and I will try and share some crucial points to remember when filling in the application. This is what the top sheet of the application will look like. The first part of the top sheet is a reference number, which is added by the office once your application is submitted. So we request you to leave this row blank. We request you to add details of the PI, the host institution, and the city they are based in. And after this, you are required to enter the total budget. Make sure that the amount that appears on the top sheet matches with the total amount that you get in the budget section, which we will come to after a few slides. There is place on the top sheet to enter your title of the proposal. Again, make sure that the title is uniform throughout the slide, throughout the application, and there are no discrepancies anywhere. And finally, by default, the top sheet will have space for the applicants to enter 1 PI and up to 3 co-PIs. So if you wish to add more co-PIs or a CRTP program head, the names of CRTP coordinators, please copy paste this format. Do not add the names of mentors, collaborators, or sponsors on the top sheet. Then we come to the very first section of the application, which is the participating institutions. Here is where you are supposed to list the names of the lead institution followed by all the participating institutions along with their addresses. As my colleague mentioned, CRCs are envisioned as more than one institution. Therefore, a strong justification is required for a single institution CRC. So if you're proposing a single institution CRC, this is the place where you can provide a strong justification for that, along with maintaining which departments of that single institution will be participating in this scheme. Next, we come to the second section, which is the team composition and management. This is the section through which you briefly introduce each investigator and where you establish the importance of a team approach for the proposed project. Applicants are requested to include the information of the PIs and co-PIs in the format provided. Please spend some time filling out the role of each investigator in the project and make sure you do not exceed the word limit of 50 words. The application by default will have space to enter the details of 1 PI and 3 co-PIs. So if you want to add more, please replicate the highlighted section. Do make sure that the kind of expertise which is required on your proposal is included in your team composition. Make note of the fact that a big team does not always mean a good team. Lower down in the same section, there is an important question of time commitment. Here, please ensure that time commitment is listed for all the PIs in the application. If required, you may add more columns to the right of this table. All investigators must consider the percent of time that they would be giving to the proposed work and should state their time commitments towards other active research and non-research responsibilities such as administration teaching, etc. For your benefit, formulas have been included in this table. These will aid you in calculating the correct time commitment. Now we come to section 3, which is the clinical research training program. As mentioned earlier, this is optional. If you are not opting for the CRTP program within your CRC application, please write NA here. Do not delete these pages or leave this section blank. For those that are applying for the CRTP program within the CRC scheme, please clearly indicate the number of CRTP fellowships being requested in the complete tenure of the grant. As Surinder has already mentioned to you, note that up to 12 CRTP fellowships can be funded across all CRC applications funded in a given round. Again, as previously mentioned, the lead institution for CRTP is the same as the lead institution in the CRC. However, applicants can identify any participating institutions for CRTP even if they are not included in the CRC. So this is the section in which you are expected to provide details of all organizations that are participating in the CRTP, provide their names, the address, along with the head of the institution. Now the lead institution will need to identify a program head, and each of the remaining participating institutions need to nominate coordinators. The program head and coordinators can typically be senior clinical or public health researchers with an established track record of science leadership. Please note that the PI and co-PIs within the CRC could also serve as the program head and coordinator. So in these sections, provide details of the program head, the various coordinators, along with their roles in the project. The fourth section, which is the real crux of the proposal, is where you enter details of your proposal. Please ensure here that the title is the same as in the top sheet and that there are no deviations anywhere in the application. Next comes the project summary of the grant application. This is meant for an expert audience. It must be elaborate and must include the key goals and outcomes of the proposed work. As this is part of your application that is read first, it is extremely important that it covers all the important aspects of your proposal. This will make it easier for your application to be reviewed by the appropriate set of experts. Next is the section to enter the lay summary. Here, please make sure that you include text that is meant for a lay audience. Do not replicate the style, text, or content from your technical research summary. Please note that India Alliance may publish the synopsis of the awarded grant on our website or third-party websites. Of course, also make note to adhere to the word limit. Before you have the space to upload your proposal, we have provided detailed instructions and guidelines. We request you to go through them in great detail. The proposal needs to have the sections mentioned in the instructions. These include the background, the aims and key questions, existing research environment at the host institution, strategy work plan, details of the study design, etc. If you are applying for CRTP, the proposal should have components of human resource training and mentorship. Training of MD and PhD students should be a critical part of the proposed project. A detailed training plan and a plan to evaluate its success needs to be elucidated under an appropriately titled section in the proposal. Please also include details of the Clinical Study Design Unit or the CSDU. Like my colleague mentioned, CSDUs are specialized units that will centrally coordinate and analyze clinical studies. And this is the place in your proposal where you can include details about that. Now, as CRCs are multi-institutional, extremely generous grants and may involve several participants, there are sections in the proposal for applicants to describe a research management plan where they could explain if there is a professional research management support available at their institution to fully leverage the power of these collaborations, there should be clearly identified milestones and a sustainability plan in which the applicants provide a sustenance plan after the funding period is over. An important component of the proposal is the Gantt chart, which clearly shows the timelines, can also include the milestones, and as again, in light of multiple investigators, should include the locations where the different aims will be carried out. Now, below the instructions, you will find guidelines for how the proposal should be formatted. Please note that it should not exceed 5,000 words. Any additional information, such as preliminary data, should be placed immediately after the proposal and must not exceed 3 pages. For references, full citations should be provided in the Vancouver referencing style. Once the proposal is ready, we request you to insert this proposal right after this description on a fresh page and end it before the subsequent CV section starts. So I've spent some time describing to you in detail what ways your CRC proposal must be formatted in and what sections it must carry. So please bear this in mind when you draft a proposal. We next come to section 5, which is the CVs of the PIs and the co-PIs. This must be provided in a sequence, starting with the PI's CV, followed by co-PI 1, co-PI 2, and so on. This is not the place to enter CVs of your collaborators or mentors. So this is what a reference CV template will look like in the application. At the very top, write down the name of the PI or the co-PI. Just below that, mention the appropriate role. Are they principal investigator? Are they co-PI 1? Are they program head, coordinator, etc.? For the host institution and sponsor details, please mention clearly the name of the host institution and also details of the sponsor, such as their name, clear designation, and email. The sponsor is typically an established senior researcher at the host institution. Normally, they are the head of the department or can be the director of the sponsoring institution, and they must have the administrative authority to sign up to India Alliance's award conditions in case of an award. Please note that anyone participating in your application in any role or any other application in the same round cannot be a sponsor. In such cases, we request you to identify a new sponsor. A few investigators may also have dual affiliations. So please mention here if you are affiliated to any other organization other than your primary organization. In question 3, we request you to clearly state if you are what your highest degree is. And in the 4th question, please mention the number of years running an independent research group. Provide a numerical value here. And if there are any career breaks that you may have had, please explain them in the subsequent section. If you scroll down in the same section, applicants need to provide details of the positions they have held in their careers and their education in reverse chronological order. In both questions 5 and 6, please enter the name, not the title or designation of the individuals who you are reporting to, like maybe the HOD or the manager, etc. The following questions are for the PIs to give a summary of their scientific career to date and their experience which is relevant to the proposed work. So while adhering to the word limit, please make sure that you put in text here that convinces the reviewers that you are a sound choice of PI or co-PI for the proposed work. The description must be detailed and clear. In the same section, applicants need to provide details of their publication record. Guidelines for how to format the list are provided in the application. Please provide accurate information and indicate authorship by using an asterisk for corresponding author papers and underline if you are a joint author. Your list may include peer-reviewed papers, preprints, inventions and patents, And we request you to provide only a maximum of 10 research outputs, all of which should be relevant to the proposed work. In addition to this list, applicants are also required to provide the PubMed string in this column. All the questions in this section are mandatory, so please be very specific while filling this out. Now here is the question for you to enter details about other financial support that you may have received in the last 5 years only, again in reverse chronological order. For active grants, just after the grant title, please include how many hours you spend on these projects. Make sure that the values entered here add up to those provided in the time commitment question. Include the awarded budget in the respective currency and clearly mention the start and end dates. Please note that this data is to be entered in the format shown above, not in any other template like a text box, a different table, etc. Please adhere to the guidelines of India Alliance. As I said earlier, that was the template, basic template for entering details of all the investigators. The co-PI CVs are also structured identical. Please edit the name of the co-PI at the top and choose the role they have in the application. The application by default has sections to enter details for 1 PI and 3 co-PIs. So if you have more than 3 co-PIs, please duplicate the template in the CV section as required. Note again that each CV has to start on a fresh page. Again, all applications by default also have sections to enter details of the CRTP program head and CRTP coordinators if they are different from the PIs already mentioned. So if you request for CRTP, please enter the details of the program head and coordinator CV here. Needless to say, if the PI or the co-PIs are also the program head and coordinators, or you have not requested for CRTP, these pages may be deleted. So these are some of the more important questions in the CV section where applicants are required to be very specific. In total, there are 13 questions and all questions are mandatory. Please do not leave any question blank. The next section is the budget. The most important thing to bear in mind before filling out this section are our costing policies, which are available on the India Alliance website and are also linked here in the application. These policies will tell you all you need to know about what permitted costs are and which are disallowed. For example, funds cannot be requested for developing physical spaces such as labs or buildings. All the budgetary requests should be commensurate with the proposed project and be supported by strong scientific justifications. Now, this section starts with the budget overview table. This table can be filled in at the very end after you fill in all the subsequent sections in this section. As you can see, costs can be requested for supporting staff, materials, equipment, travel, etc. We will go over these in some detail in the following slides. Important to note is that once you calculate the budget for each head in this section, enter those values in this table. Do ensure that the values are correct and the net total does not exceed 10 crores. Wherever applicable, we have provided formulae in this section. Please use the formulae to calculate the total costs. In case of any mismatch, the office will consider the lower cost only. The fund allocation table is a very important table in this section. As the CRCs are multi-institutional awards and research may be carried out at different locations, you need to provide details of fund sharing. PIs must specify the fund sharing for each participating institution. Note here that funds can be allocated only for the PI and co-PIs, not for collaborators or mentors. So here, please mention the location, the names of the participating institutions, mention the total funds allocated to each institution and indicate the percentage of total funds on the rightmost column. Please note that India Alliance sends funds to only the PI's institution, which will act as the lead institution. This lead institution should have the ability to set up subcontracts, transfer funds, maintain accounts, and report these on behalf of all participating institutions. If the project includes an overseas co-PI, the lead host institution should be capable of carrying out the same processes and requirements with its foreign counterparts. Now, in general, to request for costs in the budget section, there is a costing table that appears on the top where you provide the costs of items you are requesting for. Below the costing table is a box where you enter the justification for why those costs are requested. In some places, as indicated in the application form, we will need you to provide point-wise justification for each item. In others, a more general justification is adequate. So let us start with salaries for PIs. Now, according to eligibility, PIs and co-PIs must hold an academic or research post and have a salaried position for the duration of the award. In case your position requires you to procure part of your salary from extramural funding, then you must confirm this in writing, and this must be corroborated by your sponsor also in the form of a support letter, which can be attached to the last section under attachments. In addition to this letter, PIs must provide strong justification under this table for the salary requested. Next is the support staff. PIs can request support staff under different categories such as research assistants, technicians, PhD students, JRFs, SRFs, RAs, senior residents, field workers, nurses, etc. Please ensure that you follow the Government of India guidelines while deciding the salary to be paid to these. Write the category of staff, how many individuals are requested for each category, the salary grade per month, and the total cost required for each staff category. In the justification box, provide point-wise reasons for each role listed above in the table. Now for the materials and consumables, we request you to group them in broad categories such as kits, chemicals, molecular biology reagents, etc. List the total costs requested for these broad categories on the right. In the justification box below, the request for each broad category of items needs to be justified. In the justification box, do not repeat the costs themselves, but rather explain why this material or consumable is required for the proposal. Under equipment purchase, applicants are required to list each equipment as a separate item. There is provision to provide the number of items, the cost per item, and include the cost of maintenance to those and total amount requested. A formula has been provided here for your convenience. In case there are other sources of contribution for any equipment purchase, such as institutional support, you may subtract that amount from the total cost. Please do not forget to mention the location where the equipment would be placed. The justification box, as I told you earlier, has point-wise responses. Please note that maintenance costs for pre-existing equipment at any host institution cannot be requested. I will briefly go over the other sections. Most of you would already be familiar with them. Costs to access facilities or equipment outside the host institutions can be sought here. Please use the formula provided and make sure that there is no mismatch. If your study involves experiments with animals, you may request for costs to purchase them. Mention the specific name and number of individuals of the species requested. You may add maintenance costs to this and provide a consolidated value in the costing table. Make sure that the number of animals requested matches with those provided in other sections of the application, such as the proposal and the subsequent experiments with animals section. Provide a clear justification for these costs in the justification box. You may similarly request for animal associated costs, which includes the cost of animal licenses, any experimental procedures, etc. Again, make sure that it is accompanied by strong justification. Under the miscellaneous category, you may request costs for items that have not fallen so far under the aforementioned categories. This can include software costs or the costs for maintaining clinical and population cohorts and biobanks, part-time consultant fees, etc. The next heading is fairly self-explanatory. Costs for travel for both the PIs and the support staff requested on the grant can be requested. These can be for collaborative visits, conferences, field work, etc. Please pay attention to the instructions embedded within each section for your convenience. In recognition of the fact that unanticipated costs may arise during the execution of the project, India Alliance provides for a sum of 20 lakh under the flexible funding allowance. Please note that this amount is fixed and should not be changed by the team. Once you have requested for costs under the appropriate budget heads, please enter the total in the budget overview table that we showed you in the beginning. Double check to make sure the correct values are entered and calculate the total budget while ensuring that it doesn't exceed 10 crores. Section 7 is the data management and sharing plan. As the data in these grants is generated at multiple locations, a good data sharing and management plan is paramount. India Alliance policies regarding data management and sharing are available on our website, and we highly recommend that you go through it. Few proposals that either require or generate a lot of data, such as high throughput genomics or those requiring machine learning based technologies. The reviewers would like to see how teams manage and share data between themselves. You may also state how you wish to make your results or data available to others in your community and if there are any conditions to that. If any translatable results, such as patents, may be generated from your proposal, then you may also write about existing IP protection policies at your host institutions. India Alliance strongly encourages applicants to incorporate a detailed public engagement plan in their applications. We request you to take this section seriously, spend some time to think how the proposed research, its significance and outcomes will be disseminated among the public. Do remember to adhere to the word limit. Next is the section 9, which you will fill out to provide details of human participation. Applicants must include details of the kinds of samples they will require, such as biological data, personal data. Maybe they will require access to human or biological samples, such as blood, serum, biopsy, etc. Please fill out this information clearly. Also enter details of which ethics approvals will be required to conduct this kind of work. If your project requires access to a clinical facility, provide the name of the clinician that will collaborate with you, along with the hospital name and address. A letter of support from the clinical collaborator confirming access to samples will be required as an attachment. Also, this is the section to provide information on the number of human participants, highlight any selection criteria, inclusion-exclusion criteria, and the statistical basis for arriving at those numbers. If no experimentation involving humans is a part of your proposal, then please write NA here. Do not leave this section blank. Similarly, the next section is to provide details of animal experimentation. Read the guidelines here carefully before filling out the section. As India Alliance believes in the 3 R's of reduce, recycle and reuse when it comes to animal experiments, we take these very seriously. Therefore, applicants are required to soundly justify why animal use is necessary and if any alternatives are possible. There is space in this section to provide power analysis or animal number calculations for the proposed animal studies. Applicants must ensure that the number indicated here matches with the number in the proposal as well as in the budget section, in case costs are requested for purchase or maintenance of animals. Again, in case of no animal experimentation, please write NA. In the 11th section of the application, applicants are required to justify if there are any risks of research misuse associated with their idea. And in case there are, please describe the steps that the team plans to take to mitigate these risks. In the next section, which is the conflicts of interest section, please declare if you are holding positions in for-profit commercial entities and have any conflicts of interest with any other entity. Next, we have the undertakings from the PIs. This is a mandatory form. It basically requires all the PIs and the co-PIs to attest to the fact that all the sections are appropriately filled and are appended in the required sequence. We request all PIs to sign this form in a single sheet. Please note that wet signatures or scans of wet signatures are accepted. However, digital signature formats are not accepted. Another important form here is that of the institutional undertaking. As these are very generous grants and require significant commitment from the host institution, we would require the host institution to formally declare if there is any commitment they are making to these grants on top of the commitment beyond usual support for space and utilities. Each institutional undertaking must be provided on the letterhead only. We request you to copy the format provided here to the letterhead, and it must be filled and attested by the sponsor. Ensure that the signature is clear and also indicates the office stamp. The second last section in the application is that of the attachments. Here, there are a few mandatory documents that need to be attached if they are applicable to you. For example, if you have added any equipment worth 50 lakhs or more, a quotation must be attached to this section. If your position requires you to raise salary from extramural funding, then a letter of support from your institution corroborating this must be attached. You may also attach a list of collaborators with their names, affiliations, and contribution to the proposed work. Finally, if you require the use or the help of a clinical collaborator in your proposal, we will require a letter to confirm the access to patient samples. Please do not attach any letters of recommendation or collaboration letters, list of publications, any additions to CVs in this section. The final section, the 16th section, is that where you can declare if you would like potential reviewers for your application and if you would want some of them to be restricted access to. You can suggest the names of up to 3 potential reviewers who you feel are appropriate to evaluate the proposal. You may also suggest restricted reviewers with whom you have a conflict of interest. Please clearly specify if they are potential reviewers or restricted in the final column, and also the reason for adding their names. Do not add the names of individuals who are fulfilling any role in your application, such as co-PI, collaborator, mentor, sponsor, etc. Once the application is ready for submission, please remove the very first page, which includes the general instructions. Then organize the documents in the given order, that is 1 to 16, and convert the Word file to PDF. Please ensure that the file size does not exceed 20 MB. You are then required to send your application to clinical.research@indiaalliance.org. Once the office receives your complete application, we will send you an acknowledgement email with the grant reference number within 2 working days. If you do not receive this mail, please follow up with the office. This step is mandatory for the submission process to be complete. With this, we have come to the end of this informational webinar. For any queries, we request you to write to clinical.research@indiaalliance.org, and we will get back to you within 3 working days with an answer to your question. As a brief reminder, this competition is currently open, and the deadline to submit applications is 21st of April, 6 p.m. I will now hand over to Himashri.
Thank you, Divya and Surinder, for the wonderful presentation. You had shared quite a lot of information, which I believe will help out prospective CRC applicants. So next we will make a slight detour to our agenda for the day, and we'll because we already have Dr. Raja Narayanan with us, so we'll invite him to talk about his experience. He's a CRC awardee. So for that, I would like to request him to turn on his camera. In the meantime, I will introduce him. Dr. Raja Narayanan is the Network Director of Human Resources and Anant Bajaj Institute and Director of Suven Clinical Research Center. He is the Principal Investigator of Indian Health Outcomes, Public Health and Economics Research Center, I hope, a CRC grant which was awarded in 2020. He has completed his basic medical education from Delhi University, followed by residency in ophthalmology from the Guru Nanak Eye Center, New Delhi. He has also completed his master's in business administration. He is the recipient of several fellowships, including the prestigious Sir Ratan Tata Fellowship in Cataract Surgery from Shankara Netralaya Medical Research Foundation in Chennai. He is also widely published in peer-reviewed journals and a recipient of many prestigious awards. Without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Narayanan to share his experiences of submitting the application for the CRC grant as well as his work on it. Over to you, Dr. Narayanan.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation to share my experience. I'm having trouble sharing slides. If there is anybody who can tell me, I can share. Otherwise, I can speak without the slides too. Again, at the outset, I would like to mention that I'm not an expert.
You should, Dr. Narayanan, you should be receiving a presenter link on your screen.
Oh yeah, okay.
Dr. Narayanan, you are a presenter right now. Try sharing your screen, please. There's a icon as share screen option onto the top right corner.
Yes. So it's asking for some security preference. I'm just doing that. And
Dr. Narayanan, you can speak without the slides, please.
yeah, okay, I'll do that. So again, as I said, I am only going to share my experience, but I would like to say that it was a very unique experience. I learned a lot. There was a lot of support and help which I've been receiving from India Alliance after the grant, and it's very kind of them. So this grant was the first time which was called out for clinical research center grant, and when we applied, we did not have any precedence, and this was COVID year actually when the grant started. It was April 1st, 2020. COVID had just started. So we faced a lot of headwind challenges in terms of hiring. People were not willing to move. It was kind of frozen, or the time was frozen. but we somehow managed to scrape through the first year and then built up the momentum the second and third year. But when we got this call for application, I believe there has to be one investigator who actually has an idea, and then you can start either finding out potential collaborators with whom you could make it as a bigger idea, or if you already know people who are working in different fields. But what I believe India Alliance was looking for is something which is multidisciplinary and multi-institutional, because it brings in different systems, different thought processes, and different expertise. As one set of expertise or one set of values may not be able to innovate that much. So in this, we had our objectives listed as to develop a self-sustainable center of knowledge creation in clinical research and public health research through big data. So what was important is, while LV Prasad Institute provides the expertise in clinical research, we have a huge database of patients which are seen in a single electronic medical record system across all our centers and hospitals. We are located at more than 250 centers, including at the village level, the district level, and bigger cities. And that's a big thing. It's a unifying factor. We had the big data. We also have the clinical trial unit, or uh, the design unit of clinical trials. That expertise we had. But we roped in Public Health Foundation of India, IIPH Hyderabad, and also Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad, where we wanted help from the economics department to help us out with health economics. So with this objective of a broad clinical research center, we moved on to write the proposal, and we actually had to work it out, write it in record time, go through all the iterations, have a few meetings online. And then we also had a mock interview by a few of our senior colleagues in LV Prasada Institute, who actually questioned us on what we have written in the grant proposal. That also helped a lot. It helped us, reduce some anxiety when we face the actual interview panel. In fact, the interview panel consisted of more than 20 people from various countries across the world. But the questions which were asked in the mock interview, when we talk to ourselves, our ideas get more crystallized as to what we want to do and how we propose to do it. But one of the important points which the interviewers ask, apart from the depth of knowledge that we have in the area of research, is to see why they should fund a multi-institution or a multidisciplinary grant. The question they would ask is, why can't I have three different grants and give it out to three of you separately? Why do you want a common grant? The point is that we need to have a strong reason why multidisciplinary approach is required, and the fact that one institution may not have all the expertise that we need for developing a big center. We also had a very big program or objective of attracting and training the best talent in the country for outcomes research and health economics, and which is the actual CRTP program, where we have full-time faculty who are undergoing training and supported by India Alliance funding, which is in addition to the original grant. And also we have developed an online learning portal where we have different courses being run in clinical research, which lead to a certification at the end of the online course. And also we have different modules on that, clinical research, different levels. We have artificial intelligence in health. We also have specific to ophthalmology and diabetic retinopathy, which are some of the more popular programs. And this is now taken by students from more than 10 countries across the world. So that's a very important aspect of the original objective that we had, was to train our clinicians in our country into clinical research scientists. And one objective which we had, which we did not have control over, is to influence or try to influence health policy based on new knowledge that we generate. Now, influencing health policy is not easy and not in our hands, because the policy makers may or may not listen to us or look at us. But what we could do is we established good contact with our health ministry in India, the NHA, National Health Authority, and also NICE International of UK, which who have been very supportive and cooperative in helping us develop systems. One, what they have developed for the NHS in the UK, we are learning from them. And NHA, while in the Indian Ayushman Bharat program, is very ambitious, and we want to have the best systems or learn from the best systems in the world. While we cannot replicate or copy, because our requirements would be unique, but we are trying to learn from other systems and bring in some additional knowledge into our country. So these are the overall objectives which we were going for the application. And the other thing which helps every applicant is the Gantt chart as to what activity or milestone which we want to start and complete by year time points, year 1 through 5, and that helps us in tracking our overall progress. We set out to start only a newsletter by the third year, capturing what all projects and results we have had in different projects, but ultimately it took the shape of a journal itself, a peer-reviewed journal, because we were fortunate to have a publisher reach out to us, and we have been able to sustain so far. We have completed 1 year of the journal also. We have starting to get more submissions in unique space. It's not a regular clinical journal, but in the space of health economics, public health and outcomes research. And all of this would not have been possible without the help of an advisory board, which was mandated by India Alliance when they gave the grant letter that we should have an advisory board. We have an advisory board from various institutions, not just the participating institutions, but institutions other than the grantees from India, UK, and US, who guide us regularly through their insights. And they also ask us challenging questions during the progress of our activities. And overall, I would say that with all of these, we have been actually able to start all the activities which are listed in the Gantt chart, which we had mentioned. And I think both India Alliance has been very kind to us and cooperative to us. Whenever we have any doubts, they are ready to clarify those, and that has helped us significantly. One different thing which we learned during the grant application process itself is about patient engagement or public involvement, which has not been very common. It's not part of our culture of research in India, but I could gather from, let's say, NICE and NHS and other UK-based projects, it's common for them to involve the lay public. And what we did is, again, engage with an NGO called Patient Engage, and with them we have started a big program within this subset of clinical research center, where we involve them in our secretariat. When we have meetings with the health ministry, we involve Patients Engage in our regular webinars, and also we are trying to help the Indian government improve their repository of clinical trials for patients, because a lot of patients are interested in what's going on, what's latest, what's new in the field of clinical research. So with that, I would like to stop here and see if India Alliance has any other questions or any areas where they want me to speak on.
So, thank you, Dr. Narayanan, for taking us through your experience, and step by step. It will be helpful to all the applicants, I'm sure. If we have any questions for Dr. Narayanan, I'd request all of you to, all the participants, to put it in the chat box. We are also opening the question and answer session now, so all the other speakers can also come in at this point. And if we have anybody, you can raise your hands and we'll unmute you. In the meantime, I will check the questions in the question box. We have quite a few questions here, and we will take them one by one. So we had a question we had answered in the chat box, but in interest of all the attendees, I would like to ask, what and how much % of budget could be allocated to foreign institutions? I think one of the grant advisors can take this question. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Himashri. I'm happy to take this question. So we do not have a specified cap, but as these are envisioned as grants intended to support the Indian research ecosystem, the majority of funds are requested to be allocated to Indian participating institutions and should not be sent overseas. So this will be taken on by the office depending on the received application, but we do not have a specified cap.
Thank you. I can see one hand up. So Raja Kannan is here. So I'll unmute you so that you can ask your question. Okay, in the meantime, I'll ask the next question that was asked in continuation of the earlier one. So could the allocated funding be directly transferred to foreign institutions? So Divya, would you like to take that? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Himashri. So this question was already partially answered in the presentation itself. All funds are transferred to the lead institution by India Alliance, and the lead institution must have established processes to move these funds to all the different participating institutions, including any that are overseas. I hope this answers your question. I believe it was from Mohammad Sheikh. I see a question here for Dr. Narayanan. If he could expound a little bit on his experiences interviewing with the funding committee, and what are the pointers that he may have for the applicants to prepare for that?
So I told you earlier that I am not the coaching class expert here, tutor. I believe that your passion, your commitment, your vision is the best coach. I am only sharing my experience, but if you have the passion, if you can think about it every day, that you want to do this big for the country, there's something lacking in this area or in this field, I think you will be able to find a lot of answers. And actually the interview process is such that they want to see the confidence in what you are talking, the expertise, the ability to lead a large group of people. They already have your CVs, they know a fair idea. But the one thing which I mentioned was the mock interview, and it lets you take in tough questions. You have to be put through the grind before you yourself know exactly what you're going to speak. And I would say that from my side, I never, because this was the first of the kind of grant even when I first applied. But I would say that the key question which the interviewers asked, they asked about big data, because big data was new in health, that we had proposed a lot of questions on big data. And there were also questions on why do you want to collaborate with different organizations, why don't you run your own clinical research grant, because we had proposed these different people. Now public health, health economics, strategy, social sciences or economics, we don't have as a single unit in a health system. We usually don't have a unit as such, but these are important for any policy making body to actually find out. And that's where they actually feel that it is this group of people, because it's not the one person or organization which is pitching for it, but they look to see if all of you are talking the same voice, have the same vision, have the same thought, and are aligned with each other completely in this process. And that's when they come together and see, yes, but I'm sorry if I am not don't have a definitive answer. Question number one, this is the answer, and two, this is the answer, but this is my answer. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Narayanan, for your answer. Thank you, Dr. Narayanan. I'm sure it clarifies some of the doubts the participants may have. So next we have a question from Dipti Ranjan, who asks, is it possible for junior faculties, assistant professor, to apply for this grant to develop advanced centers in a particular specialty? So I'd like the grant advisors to take a lead, and please go.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So as mentioned in the presentation, there is no specified or desired duration of experience in running independent research group or a lab for any PI or co-PI. This is specific for CRC. So it is expected that the host institution will nominate a PI or a co-PI who is a senior researcher and who has sufficient experience in leading such multi-institutional CRC. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So we have another question. So the next question that comes up is that CRC seems to be an institutional grant. Does that mean the administrative head has to be the PI in the application? So please go.
Take this up. So any senior researcher can be designated as the principal investigator. In case the PI has administrative assignments, in addition to their regular research activities, they can justify their time commitment to this grant in the application.
Thank you, Surinder, for answering. I have one more question in the list here. Can a superannuated emeritus professor at a institution be eligible to participate as CRDP coordinator?
Yes, as long as they have tenure at the host institution for the entire duration of the grant. The host institution must provide a letter confirming that the professor will have a duration for the entire duration of the grant. There's one more question which I would like to take. Can a non-clinical research institution become a lead institution on a CRC project? So it is expected that the host institution who wishes to apply for CRC grant, they have relevant infrastructure and they have the they can provide mentorship and time for its trainees and mentors, and also they should be able to provide the research support in order to drive this program. I can see one more. If I'm not sure if my proposal fits the remit of India Alliance. In that case, please do share your abstract of your proposal over email. You can write to us on clinical.research@indiaalliance.org, and we'll get back to you soon with a response. This is one more point. One question. Can a CRC or a TSG grant have collaborators? So yes, you can add collaborators to these grants, but these collaborators would not receive any funds from the subcontract arrangements, like co-PIs do.
If there's time to take just one question, can new institutes less than 3 years old and or faculty from these new institutes participate in this program? So I'm happy to take this question. Yes, new institutes, we do not have a bar on how established or old the institutes must be in order to apply for this scheme. As long as they are not for profit, they are based in India and are able to sign up to India Alliance's award conditions and policies. In principle, new institutes can also apply for funding under this scheme.
I would like to add just one point. Because this is a new institution, so please visit our website and refer to the list of documents that are required. Because in case of an award, we will require these documents to confirm the eligibility of your organization. This is mandatory requirement. Please do check. If you are unable to find, please do write to us, and we'll get back to you and with a link, and we'll clarify your query.
So now we end, in the interest of time, we are ending the question and answer session, but you can always, as mentioned by both Surinder and Divya, you can always write to them at clinical.research@indiaalliance.org. You will find the email address also by going to our website and clicking on the funding opportunity available for CRC on the website. And now, since before we close, I would like to remind you about a few more things. The call for application for the CRC grant is currently open. The application deadline is 21st April 2023, 6 p.m. Please keep that in mind. And also, should you like to refer to any of the conversations, any of the discussions we had today, you can go to our website, and we'll put the link to the YouTube video of the presentations there, and you can access them in 1 to 2 working days. And we therefore hope that the webinar has helped you understand the application process better. So if any of you missed out, you can always go through the recording, which will also, you can follow the India Alliance YouTube channel for any such webinars on fellowships. We have currently fellowships as well as grants open, so please check the list, and if you have any doubts on which one you would like to apply, please go ahead and write to us. Do follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to keep yourself updated about our grants, fellowships, workshops, and webinars such as this. This brings us to the end, and I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Narayanan, for taking the participants through his own journey, which helps a lot of the prospective applicants to understand it step by step. I would also like to thank both our speakers, Divya and Surinder, for their in-depth presentations and for clarifying the participants' doubts and answering questions, and also the thank you to the team at the back end. So thank you all for joining us today. Please take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.